Okay, I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee for today, Friday, May 28th, 2021, and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First order of business would be the approval of the previous meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
I had two things by way of clarification from the past minutes. My request or concerns were relative to the financial information that was provided, and it wasn't intended to be only limited to 1 year for review financial information transparency. I just want to make that clear. I don't know that we need a change. But the minutes has indicated that my concern was over just 1 year, and it wasn't for 1 year. It would be going forward. The second thing was that in the first paragraph of 5A, it indicated that we got a lot of information regarding finances, and I thought that the minute should be amended to end after the word presentation. And my reason was that I didn't. I'm positive we didn't get complete financial information from our DMO about what's happening with our money. We got a very limited review of finances. So that would, if there needs to be an amendment, I would move to amend.
I will certainly go back and listen to the recording of those things
All
to
right.
determine that. The first one is maybe a clarification for the minutes, something that I can put in these minutes, but won't change the previous minutes.
Sure.
That's more your own clarification as opposed to, I'll look and see if the second one, I mean, that also may be an opinion as opposed to an absolute change to the minutes.
But I will review both of those. And I know that last week, Mr. Burns, you said that I had listed Ms. Mueller as being present and she was not. So I'll certainly change that.
Right. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Okay, the approval of the minutes passes. Next item is review of financial statements by Debbie Suggs.
So what we have to review are the April 30th statements. The balance sheet's on top. You can see total cash is $1,981,000. If you notice, the cash at BB&T balance is negative, and I just wanted to assure you guys that there is cash in your account. The city pools cash in one single deposit account, and then the balances for the different funds go plus or minus depending on which checks are processed versus which deposits are processed. We balance that pretty regularly by taking cash to and from the local government investment pool. So it will, I promise, it's fine, and it will be a positive balance by the end of the fiscal year. Accounts payable is $67,000. Due to other funds is $19,742. And as I recall, the biggest portion of the due to other funds is the salary associated with the public restroom attendant. Thank you, Laura. Old members of the committee will recall that we used to have a contract with for cleaning and attendant at the restroom. That contract expired, or the contractor determined she didn't want to do it anymore. And so now the city has kind of, for this season, come up with a hybrid approach where we have a contract for cleaning, but then we also have a part-time city employee. We actually have two. that man the facility on certain hours of the week, mainly during the weekend. And they can open and close according to the level of activity down there, which is a good thing. All in all, I think we'll end up coming out about the same, but we're evaluating that this season. Ending fund balance, which is the basically the assets minus the liabilities, is a little under 1.9 million. Next page, we'll talk about revenues. This is the quarterly payment from the state. And I think in the total schedule, but the yeah, here we go. Back page of this schedule. Do y'all have that in your packet?
Yes.
Final page. This is a good one to kind of get a historical perspective of the state accommodations tax funding. This is the tourism related portion only. So this is only what is under the purview of this body. And you can see that we budgeted a really conservative amount for FY21 given historical trends. But what we've seen actually is that although September's quarter was off, December and March are higher than they were even before the impacts of COVID. So we expect June to be a big quarter and for the FY21 actual to be in excess of the budget and more in line with pre-pandemic levels. And we're seeing that across all accommodations and economic related indicators of the city. The only revenue stream that has seemed to be slower to recover is hospitality, which makes perfect sense because things were closed for so long and people were not going out to, they might have been getting takeout, but they weren't going into restaurants to eat. But I believe that trend is certainly going to reverse as of this weekend. So any questions on that? We're expecting a very good FY22 as far as accommodations and local option sales. Okay, we'll go through the expenditures. Public restroom operations, we've already kind of talked about. You can see there's the 19,742 for the year-to-date payroll associated with the attendance. And then the cleaning, paper supplies, utilities, all associated with the restrooms. Through April, we're way below budget for the year. There's the contract to JLG Enterprises for the beach barrel and front beach district trash pickup. If you walk the beach early in the morning, you see the tracks of the machine. That's where this is paid for. Also on this page is website maintenance DC3. Historically, ever since the city created a website, the cost of the website has been funded from state aid tax. Next year, we're changing that up a little bit. It's become such an integral part of the city's operations. We have a contracted IT service now that is pretty robust. So all those costs are going to be transferred or budgeted in FY22 to come out of the general fund. It just makes sense because it's just an integral part of city operations. It does create a presence for the city on the website that certainly supports tourism, but that's somewhat secondary now to all the other things the website does. So that will change next year. T-shirt promo will continue to be funded. We just haven't had a lot of need for T-shirts because that program was suspended during the pandemic. Next page, Charleston CVB. You can see this is the 30% distribution from the 3 quarterly payments that we've received from the state. 4th of July. So the 75% payment on the marina bond debt service hasn't happened yet, but it will. That bond was issued. Fireworks were canceled last year and have been canceled for this year. So there's no spending there. Some spending associated with the rec department. That $5,000 kind of just a placeholder to replace or add playground equipment is needed. It also covers repair of existing equipment, and some work was needed on the scoreboard. Next page, music in the park and the Easter egg hunt. Both of those events did happen. So there's some expenses associated with those. Police Department body armor, same thing. This fund supports police and fire personnel. Those transfers will be made at year end, and they will be made at the budgeted level. That's to come. Repairs to the public safety building, that project is all but complete. I think there's a few kind of punch list items to finish up. They're also repairing the gate to the parking lot, and some furnishings are being replaced, but the contract is paid out. So it's these amounts here are all that this fund is going to have to pay. That's under budget. Debt service on the ladder truck has happened. Refurbishment of the 95-foot ladder has happened at budgeted levels. And that is it. Any questions on expenditures?
I have a question. Why is our Isle of Palms tax money being placed in a Cayman Island Category B bank account?
I'm sorry.
Why is our money being? You may not know, but they are. Why is our DMO putting our money in a Cayman Island bank account?
I don't think BB&T or the South Carolina Local Government Investment Pool in the Cayman Islands. I don't understand your question.
Okay, we have a DMO
Who
that's
is?
listed here for one of our expenses. And we're giving 30%, basically it's 30% of our tax money to them to promote tourism. I'm trying to find out why our money would be placed in a Cayman Island bank account.
You think the CVB uses a Cayman Island account?
I know they do.
Okay.
I can tell you, I've looked at their 990s and they clearly say that they put it in there. They say it's in a Wells Fargo account, but it's really in a Wells Fargo affiliate account in a Category B account. And I'm trying to, you must not know the answer. So maybe it's falling on deaf ears, but I was trying to get my mind around why our money would be in that account.
I can certainly.
Debbie, if I can kind of hop in here for a minute. So that money would already be under the purview of the CVB. The city would have nothing to do with placing that money in that account. That is managed by them after it is dispersed to the DMO.
I respectfully disagree. This is our taxpayers' money. It comes into the city. We give them money. We have a right to select them as our DMO. We could form our own DMO. Who's looking? I'm trying to find out who's looking out to see that they're spending our money in a wise way. Or do we care?
Well, we certainly do
I
care.
care.
Yeah, I care as well. And certainly it would not have been the city's decision to put those funds in that account specifically, I think is what I'm getting at, though.
I'm not criticizing the Isle of Palms about this. I want to know who's going to be looking out for our back, who's looking out for us to see how our money is being spent. And,
How about if I jump in here and say, on our agenda, we have an item under new business to discuss a Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. And I think it would be better suited to talk about that subject at that time.
Okay.
Correct,
That's
yeah.
fine.
That's going to be more directly related to this discussion than the financial reports would be.
I agree. I just wondered if you knew, and she doesn't know, and take her at her word.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial statements? Okay, thank you, Debbie. The next item is old business, of which there is none. So we will move to new business. I'd like to welcome Charles Barano of the Municipal Association of South Carolina. Charles is here to give us a presentation concerning disbursement of accommodations tax funds and give us some training on Freedom of Information Act. Charles?
If it's okay with the committee, I would like to reorder the agenda briefly to allow our applicants to have their applications heard first.
Okay,
Just so that way they don't have to spend a whole lot of time sitting here to listen through his presentation, that kind of thing. Is that okay by you guys?
Yeah, that's absolutely
I
fine.
need a motion.
Okay, so
I need a motion in order to reorder the agenda.
That's a move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll move to the application by the South Carolina Aquarium for funding in the amount of $10,000 for the Turtle Trek 5K project.
Yeah.
just state your name.
Yeah, it wasn't on the agenda, so.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Gaybosh. I am the Strategic Partnerships Officer for the South Carolina Aquarium. And I am here to request $10,000 in ATAX funding for the South Carolina Aquarium's Turtle Trek. The Turtle Trek is a city-sponsored event. It's a 5K Sunset Beach run here on Isle of Palms. It's scheduled for Saturday, October 9th at the Isle of Palms County Park, and it consists of a beach sweep, a kids fun run, a 5K, and an awards celebration. All of the proceeds from this event support the South Carolina Aquarium Sea Turtle Care Center, which I know everyone's familiar with. We rehabilitate and sea turtles. We are at, I think, 320 sea turtles to date. So this event is a great event for all ages, families. We've seen runners ages 2 to 78 participate, and they usually come in from about 25 to 30 different states and really make it a whole weekend. Every year we've had a wait list, we've sold out. We have kind of a limited capacity based on the Isle of Palms County Park, but we're expecting about 800 runners to join us this year. This event is a great way to raise money for the sea turtles and also promote litter-free beaches. And we do that through our beach sweep that we host before the run and all of our marketing and messaging around this event. And then, of course, sea turtle conservation, which is very important. This event, it's our 6th year, and we have been lucky enough to be approved as a city-sponsored event, and we've received ATAX funding for the last 5 years, which I think has really elevated this event and contributed to the success that we have. So we're hoping to raise $75,000 for the sea turtles this year, and thank you for your consideration. And any questions I can answer?
Stephanie, I have one question. It's just semantics, but I just think it should be corrected for the record.
Mhm.
On your application, item 5, the third paragraph, you're saying that you're going to be a virtual event this year, and I don't think that's what you intend.
No, I think that says last year we had to move to a virtual event.
Last year, we had to move the event to a virtual event. due to
Oh.
COVID, and we have decided to continue with that format again this year.
Sorry, yes, that's an error. We are having an in-person event this year. We did do all virtual for all of our events last year. And, you know, as you guys know, in the last month, I think everything's just like opened up and life has gotten back to normal. So we're excited to bring the event back to Isle of Palms this year. We'll still be offering a virtual component, but we're expecting 800 people to run in person. And that's usually about 1,000, 1,500 people because they bring families. So it's a great family run. I didn't have, you know, exactly heads and beds numbers. So, but I put down kind of all of our social media, our billboards, kind of all the views that I have for marketing. Really the only kind of hotel information I have is that we partner with Wild Dunes. They sponsor this event and they've been offering a hotel discount to runners and like a shuttle from the resort to the run. So I know they love this event to be able to get their staff and their guests involved. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll correct it. When I first filled this out, it was virtual and then we changed it.
I would like to point out that the city will be hearing an application to make this a city-sponsored event in an ongoing kind of format at the next city council meeting. So take that under advisement as well.
Okay, any other questions for Stephanie?
I have one, and I'm going to look favorably towards the application, but I have two observations and will ask for confirmation. Not only does this promote tourism,
Mhm.
but it also has a cultural advantage, a benefit to the island and showcase the island as well. Is that correct?
Yes,
I
so
look at it both ways.
definitely, you know, we bring people to the island. I think 97% of our runners do not live on Isle of Palms. So we're bringing people in and then we're cleaning up the beaches and we're teaching people the importance of, you know, leaving the beach with everything they bring and also how they can protect our sea turtles. So this event, it really checks a lot of boxes for us.
I have one other question. I'm just trying to look at things in context. What do our sister communities contribute? Would Sullivan's Island contribute to this at all?
No, not yet. We haven't asked them.
Why not? Do you know?
We've just been focusing on Isle Palms because it's on the Isle Palms beach, but that's a great suggestion.
I didn't know whether Folly Beach contributes, whether Mount Pleasant supports this effort.
No, not yet. I haven't requested funding. We do get support, tax funding from the city of Charleston for other kind of initiatives at the aquarium. But not yet. I've not requested. And you know, I know the Isle of Palms County Park is separate, but in the past, we've always recognized you and them as sponsors on everything. So you know, they seem to really like this event too.
Okay, any other questions for Stephanie? Ron, I'm going to need a little help on procedure as far as I've not gone through the voting process on these applications, so I need a little bit of guidance.
To approve.
Exactly. Yes.
Second.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, the next item is we're going to welcome George Page to discuss his application by the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 3137 for funding in the amount of $12,000 for facilities maintenance. Floor is yours, George.
Thank you. The VFW is right down here next to the Windjammer. I think you probably all know about where it is. We're right on the beach. There's two memberships in the VFW. You have auxiliary, which is what I am. I'm in the VFW because my father served in a foreign war. If you have a relative, a direct relative, or a husband or wife, you can join in the auxiliary. If you actually served in a foreign war, you can be a comrade. And those are the people who are the main influencers and the people who are involved with the day-to-day operations of things. I'm basically there to assist in fundraising and help them raise money. We have approximately 1,600 members at this location. And that includes both comrades and auxiliary. Out of those 1,600, about 50% of them are in Mount Pleasant and IOP. The other 50% is outside of 50 miles and outside the state. A lot of our members come here because it's the best view of any VFW, as far as I know, in the world. Okay. Our mission is to give veterans and their families the utmost support. We have 14,000 bar receipts a year on average. That's just receipts. That's the number of people who are paying. They could be paying for 6 people or they could be paying for 2. But over the last 3 years, it's been around 47,000 of these things. So we have a ton of people visiting our facility. We have a daily log as part of the attachments I left with you. And that's just 4 weeks, and there's over 200 names on it. Those are guest names. There are members on there also, but these people are guests. So they come on a regular basis. We keep that log ongoing, and we have thousands of visits from guests from out of town on a yearly basis. I think the comrades and the auxiliary members are your best ambassadors for IOP, shops, restaurants, hotels, rental services. How do I know that? I'm pretty regular at the IOP bar. Maybe not a good thing to say, but people come in and they ask us, where do you eat? Where would you stay? And almost without a doubt, it ends up being somewhere on this island. I know I always give if they say, what's your favorite restaurant? I tell them my favorite restaurant. So what do you want to eat? You want a dive bar or do you want something good? What do you want? So I reference IOP. The same with anything with regards to any hotels or expenses. I'm asked at least 2 or 3 times a week, where do I like to eat? The other thing is we do have a lot of local members. They're on Isle of Palms, even though they're maybe in Mount Pleasant or Somerville, they're here. Now, they may not be spending the night, but they're spending their money. They eat here. They come here regularly. They're not at Shem Creek and they're not at Seaside Farms. They're here. So they're spending their money here. And some of them may have to stay the night because they may have a little bit too much to drink. So we have a lot of people who come up here who are still active duty, Air Force and Navy people. They come down for the day, spend the day at the beach. They love our view because they can go to and from the beach, have an adult beverage, get a quick shower if they need it, use the restroom. And so we have a ton of people who just show up on a regular basis from the bases here. In addition, we have fun. We really do. We do something for about anything. It doesn't take much to have a party. Kentucky Derby, St. Patrick's Day, almost anything. We'll have a get together. A lot of activity during football season. For some reason or another, there's an inordinate amount of Clemson fans at our place. we do offer memorial services. We assist in flag retirement. If you've not been to a service like that, it's really moving. Taps is played. We cut up the flags the way they're supposed to be cut up, and we burn the flags the way they're supposed to be burned. Ones that are nylon don't get burned; they get folded and recycled. We do a lot of work with the individual vets. One of the things we need constantly is maintenance on the elevator. And a lot of disabled vets come here. And as a result, they're glad to come here because they don't have to walk up steps. And that's a big expense for us. You mentioned the public police building. Think of the money we just spent on that building. We're on the beach. We're taking the brunt of the salt air and the wind. We have all sorts of problems with wood. We have to resurface. We're supposed to resurface our decks every year, but we haven't. We do it usually every other year. So they take a beating. We need assistance on our HVAC systems. Our building is old. I believe it was built in either 91 or 92. And it's taken quite a bit of lashing, got lots of rotted wood. It's got to be replaced. We need a new roof pretty substantially and pretty soon. Our utility bills are about an average of $1,000 a month. I'm just looking here. We at the VFW support Isle of Palms and almost everything we do. Now I'm here to ask for your support. Any questions?
I had a comment now. You talked about Clemson. Does everybody know George Page played football at Duke? Did you ever win, George?
Well, we won half our games. We tied Clemson. That's back when they allowed ties.
You're a charitable organization?
We are. We're a 501c19, which is a charitable private group, other than a C3, which is a charitable open group. We are a charitable
This is
organization.
primarily a post, not a bar. I just want
It's a post, yes.
It's a post,
Yes.
but service for veterans and supports this community.
Yes.
I have a copy of the VFW Form 990s for the years of 2017, 18, and 19. If anybody in the committee would like to take a look at these documents, you're welcome to. Defer your eyes only. We'll get them back, return them when we're done. Anybody need to see these? I'm good.
I seen my friend Malcolm there. Maybe this is for Malcolm. I don't know of any nonprofit organization on the Isle of Palms that does more for our residents and for our tourists than the VFW. Do you?
That's it.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I moved to accept the application.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. All against?
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next order of business is we'll get back to Charlie this time rather than leading off the parade. I'd like to welcome Charlie Barano of the Municipal Association of South Carolina. He's going to give us some training and a presentation concerning disbursement of accommodation tax funds and information concerning or training concerning the Freedom of Information Act. Welcome, Charlie.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm gonna have to, am I gonna be able to move so that I can see that too? Or? Okay, great. It is good to be here with you this morning. Again, Charlie Barano with the Municipal Association of South Carolina. A little bit about me and the association. I am, and I hate using the term former city manager. Maybe I'll be a city manager again someday. But I worked with the city of Greenwood for almost 20 years and was their city manager, and actively worked with their Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee. So have working day-to-day knowledge with A-Tax, the 2%, local, the state, hospitality. So have working knowledge of the lingo. The Municipal Association, a little bit quickly about us. We are your advocate. We are here to provide education and help. We're not a regulatory agency. We get that inquiry a lot. There's a lot of folks that want us to interpret. We provide education guidance, but we're not regulatory. So we're here today to provide training and offer the town, the city assistance if we can. Any questions about the association? Great. Go ahead. So accommodation tax, hopefully you're familiar with state law, Title 6, Chapter 4, that directs the allocation of the 2% state accommodation tax charged on all statewide accommodations. Again, commonly referred to, it is commonly confused with the local accommodation tax, but we're today talking about the 2% accommodation tax. And accommodations are the rental or charges for rooms, campground spaces, lodging, sleeping accommodations furnished to transients by any motel, inn, tourist court, tourist camp, motel, campground, residence, or any place in which rooms, lodging, or sleeping accommodations are furnished to transients for consideration. And I'll provide a full copy. Ron can give you this later. But the Department of Revenue collects those dollars and then remits those, as the subs explained to you in the financial report, back to the city. A municipality or county receiving more than $50,000 of accommodation tax revenue is required to have an accommodation tax advisory committee. And that is your role. And it's an important role, and want to say thank you. It's obviously getting ready to go into Memorial Day weekend, and here you are providing your time for the town. So it's a very important role. You're a part of the vetting process of the expenditure of public funds. Very important. So we use the term staying in lane. So your lane is to vet, but ultimately City Council is held accountable for the expenditure of these public dollars. So, you know, it's fine if City Council differs from your opinion. That's all you do is offer opinions, and then they make the final decision. Consists of 7 folks, and the state law explains how those folks are to be appointed. They should be representative of the hospitality industry, the accommodation tax industry. There should be representation from the arts community, and so on. So it's supposed to be a diverse reflection of a tourism-based economy and things that that make Owl Palms unique. Go ahead. Again, you submit written recommendations to the City Council annually. I think y'all meet possibly quarterly. There's nothing in the law that dictates how you meet or the disbursement. What I was familiar with, we met once a year with the Accommodation Tax Committee. Obviously, you're dealing with a substantial amount more than most advisory committees deal with. So there is possibly a need to meet more often. Again, so your recommendation is to the council, and they can either accept reject or modify what you submit to them. An annual report is then submitted to a committee that was formed, I think in the early 2000s. The TURC, which is the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, wasn't originally there, and then it was put in place by the law. It's an 11-member committee that reviews tourism-related expenditures. So there's a lot of layers of review in all this process. And so once a year, the staff with the city here put together a report to the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, and they review what you have reviewed, the application, the information. They look at things like whether you recommended it, whether council recommended it, and they'll really hone in on things if you recommended it, council disagreed, or if you didn't recommend it and council did. That's a flag for them to really look in further. So just be aware that there is the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee. So how are the 2% funds spent? And so maybe they'll tell me, I don't know. I've always found this formula intriguing. I'm like, how did they create this? But anyway, somebody in a vacuum somewhere created this formula. But the first $25,000 goes to the general fund. So it becomes city money that can be used for general purposes of the city. The next 5% collected goes to the general fund. Again, don't know how that was created, but at any rate, then the next 30% goes to the designated marketing agency. The law specifically says a nonprofit. If the one is not there, then one can be created. We may have more discussion. I know that's already been brought up, and I'm happy to give it a reflection on what we see across the state, or if it's helpful now to do that. Y'all just, the committee, give me guidance. Do you want to hear?
Yeah, I would be interested in hearing what other.
And we see a mix. It's a mix across the board. In the smaller communities, like I was in Greenwood, our neighboring community there in Greenwood was Newberry. They did the same thing. Typically, you will see maybe a local chamber of commerce dabbling into tourism and visitorship. And so sometimes you will see the 30% designated to a chamber. Others have visitor organizations like you do here with the Charleston CVB. In Greenwood and Newberry's case, neither felt like the chamber was doing what needed to be done. And so we interpreted the law not to mean that you had to establish a second nonprofit. We believe that you could establish a department within the city and fund that, because the city is a nonprofit entity in essence. And so the cities of Newberry and Greenwood, at least, there may be others, have established a department or a named function of tourism. In Greenwood, it was the Greenwood Regional Visitors and Tourism Bureau. In Newberry, they fund their Newberry Conference Center and visitors. If you're familiar with Newberry, they also have the Newberry Opera House. There's kind of a quasi mix. Some fund multiple agencies. Your neighbor in Foley is a good example of that. They fund, as I understand, they created their own nonprofit and fund both somewhat to the Charleston CVB and to their nonprofit. The law says you can put the 30% into multiple agencies, doesn't have to be one. The city of Walterboro is another one that they created their own nonprofit, city set up nonprofit that facilitates those funds. And then there's those like yourself that fund to a designated tourism agency that's historically than there, like the Charleston CBB. So there's kind of a mix of how we see that 30% allocation in the state.
It's helpful.
So moving on now, and again, the state law dictates how the funds are to be distributed. As I said, the 30% that you select one or more, and then the remaining 65% of those funds, and this is the key term, are to be used for tourism-related expenditures. And that word tourism always gets folks. And as I told you, we're not a regulatory, and I'm not an attorney, I readily admit, but the meaning of words, it can vary. But the law does define what tourism-related expenditures include, and that is one, advertising, promotion of tourism, so to develop and increase tourism attendance through general publicity. The promotion of arts and cultural events. 3, the construction, maintenance, operation of facilities for civic and cultural activities, including the construction, maintenance of access and other nearby roads, utilities, and facilities. So if you've got roads leading into those tourism attractions, and the components of those roads, drainage, sidewalks, all of that can qualify for tourism-related expenditures. The criminal justice system, law enforcement, fire protection, solid waste, and health facilities where required to serve tourists and the tourist facilities. This is based on an estimated percentage of costs directly attributed to tourists. So you've got to come up with some reasonable approach to identify a percentage of who in the community is tourists and who is not, who is truly local. And then public facilities such as restrooms, dressing rooms, parks, and parking lots. Y'all have already mentioned, you heard the conversation about your restroom facility. And then tourist shuttle transportation services. 7, the control and repair of waterfront erosion, including beach renourishment. We see a lot, practically all of our coastal communities using the local accommodation tax for beach renourishment projects. The opening of visitors centers. So if you wanted to stand up your own visitors center, that is something that is an eligible expenditure. And there's a way that you can set the money aside for future expenditures, such as beach renourishment. So if you wanted to save money on an ongoing basis for a long-term, large project, you can do that. However, you've got to get approval from the TERC, the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, to be able to do that. So just be mindful of that. Now, getting into travel and tourism. And I should have pointed out too, in addition to the law, as I said, this really gets down to interpretation. And that is different from everybody's interpretation of something, may be a little different. And so 23 years ago, even before the TERC, the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee, was in place, the Department of Revenue issued SC ruling 9822. And this is an exceptional document. And their rulings realize that doesn't mean it's law, but it is a good advisory opinion of what is and is not eligible. And so the Department of Revenue did a good job. They put a lot of examples in there. And so more than I can give you, but if you ever have questions, this is a great document that'll kind of lead you through tests that can qualify whether or not an expenditure is eligible.
What's the name of that document?
It is ruling 9822, and it's the use of accommodation tax funds. And it's a ruling of the Department of Revenue. the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee has it on their website as a link. And I should have brought copies for you, but it's about a 20-page document, but it's a good explanation. But guidelines for tourism, again, the term tourism and travel is defined in the state code, and it says the action and activities of people taking trips outside their home communities for the purpose except daily commuting to and from work. And that's really it. That's the extent. The law doesn't get into heads on beds, and there's some other travel terms that the different tourism groups and even the Department of Revenue in their guide reference. Different travel groups say that individuals that drive more than 50 miles from their home to come to a spot are tourists. So, you know, I mean, there may be some efforts that somebody could live within Charleston County proper and be considered a tourist for Isle of Palms. So it's really fact-specific information, and I nor anybody else, it's going to be dependent on the application, the individual application, what information they provide. You heard your two applicants this morning. They gave you zip code information. They gave you a listing of information, and that's critically important to prove or to justify the expenditure of those public funds. Again, a lot of folks can get caught up on the word tourism and what that actually means. Again, moving on, salaries may be paid from the 65% tourism funds, as well as the 30% advertising, the money for your destination marketing organization. However, those salaries may only be paid based on the percentage of time spent on tourism-related functions. So there is an importance of tracking those dollars to ensure that they comply with the law. The accommodation tax funds cannot be spent on purely local functions. And again, the 98 ruling goes into a lot of what that is. If it's something the city already has, would have to have to operate, it probably does not qualify. And I think the example that they had in here, you know, a police chief, most cities need a police chief to operate a police department, right? But those additional officers, so every officer that you add to cover tourism-related functions, events, patrols, those can be justified. But the salary for the chief may or not be justifiable, because that's a position that a municipality needs. So, but again, I refer you to this document. You know, and they get into some of the challenges that particularly a lot of the small communities get in trouble with, or the interpretation. You know, you see a lot of these town welcome signs on the road. And the Tourism Expenditure Review and the Department of Revenue has said, you know, that's really not the intent of these funds. That's a nice to have thing, but a billboard, if you put a billboard out on the interstate that says, you know, Isle of Palms, best food, local food, come visit, you know, that is likely eligible, but not the welcome sign that welcomes folks to the town. So it gets really specific as to the interpretation. The Tourism Committee may approve the installation, maintenance, and operation of lighting and landscaping where the committee believes it promotes travel and tourism. And I'll tell you, in Greenwood, if you're familiar with Greenwood, Greenwood is home of Park C. It's one of the largest family-owned, no longer family-owned, but seed companies, catalog seed companies. And so flowers is very important to Greenwood's culture and heritage. So the city spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on its landscaping and flowers. And a lot of that is paid for through accommodations and hospitality tax. But the city has a visitor and tourism marketing plan that identifies the strategy of using flowers to bring in visitors. And then the city tracks through visitations, through license plate checks to verify that those folks are coming to watch the flowers. So, but flowers may not work for the Isle of Palms. Every community might be just a tad bit different. Ron got up to the FOIA. I did want to mention too, one additional component, and that is for the large tourism counties. And you're in one of those. And those are the counties that generate total countywide. This is the county of Charleston and all the municipalities, more than $900,000 of accommodation tax revenue. And Charleston and you generate well beyond that. So you are then eligible to spend for those typical municipal resources, police, fire, garbage collection, and y'all do that. And the city is, asking that you agree to those recommendations, and that's allowable. But in Greenwood, is a different example, or in your, I'm trying to think of some of your neighboring counties. I was just over in Colleton County meeting with the folks at Edisto Beach. They do not generate $900,000 in accommodation tax revenue. So they don't have the flexibility of using state accommodation tax to support those traditional municipal general fund services. So that is a little caveat that, again, adds to the complexity of this. This is not can be a little confusing at times, but with that, yeah, sure, yeah.
That additional ability the city has to cover general fund type services is only within the 60%.
Yeah, the
It
65.
does not,
Yeah.
65, it does not change what has to be eligible.
That's right.
Or what can be eligible.
Correct.
Is there any move afoot to lessen the restrictions on the 30% rate?
Lessen the restrictions as to, and specifically, I'm not aware of really any restrictions on how the 30. I mean, it needs to be spent on tourism related, but as you saw, that's subject to interpretation. I mean, that's a broad swath, and that the law is silent as to what the DMO is required to submit. In fact, I think the Department of Revenue speaks as an example as to what the DMO is required to give back to the city. Those are really negotiated partnership questions that the two entities should work on together.
That was a good question. I want to follow up on that.
Sure.
I don't think we have a contract with our DMO, or a written contract like Hilton Head. I know has one because I'm having trouble getting my mind around even for if you have somebody, if you have a termite contract, you have a contract, you have something in writing. You have performance standards, you buy a house, you buy a car. I've asked, and apparently we don't have a contract. Are we gonna get in trouble because of that?
Certainly I would defer to the city attorney or any other legal guidance that you or the city has in regards to the interpretation of the law there. A written understanding contract likely would assure that that you are getting what you want and that there's a clear understanding of what everybody's doing.
Well, I'm very appreciative of our staff, of our own staff. That's not intended as criticism of them. This has been going on for a long, long time. I think from the beginning, we've never had a contract. It made sense when we didn't have much money and it didn't make the juice wasn't worth the squeeze so much to look into it.
Sure.
But if we're paying them $600,000 a year, more or less, you think should we have a contract? Should we?
Again, that's a local decision. I'm not gonna be able to give you that. That's a local decision. I think the key for the town, and we went through this in Greenwood, we did not have a roadmap. We didn't have a plan. And so you can get into a situation where that 30%, or even the 65%, you don't have a vision of where you're going year to year. So in Greenwood, again, just using that as an example, we engaged a third party to help us draft a document, a roadmap, master plan, whatever you want to call it, for tourism. And so we had a tourist expert come in, facilitate meetings with the ATAX group, with the lodging professionals, with the hospitality. We studied the time of year, where are we having vacancies? What do we likely in your summer months, you may not need a lot of, it's coming. But then there may be some off-season times where particularly maybe some of your local restaurants would like to see some unique traffic. That would be my thought as to what may be helpful to have that plan, and then whoever your DMO is, whether it's the Charleston CVB or whoever, whatever, they then can refer to that plan, and that plan then is the guide as to how to spend the money.
Charlie, I indicated to you I was new, so I'm asking you, trying to understand what my role is supposed to be. I'm very respectful and appreciative of the role the city has played. I'm respectful and appreciative of our DMO and whatever success they played in promoting tourism on the Isle of Palms. But that said, are we supposed to provide oversight to make sure that our DMO is spending our money wisely, or do we just leave it up to them? Do we turn a blind eye if we see, for example, like I did, and Debbie's very good, but she didn't know that they had I think it came as a shock to her that our selected DMO has a bank account in the Cayman Islands. There may be an answer for it, but I asked them, they wouldn't tell me.
I'm not aware. My quick review, I believe the law is silent as to your role. The Department of Revenue had an interpretation in their 98 ruling that said, the arrangement and selection is the city or city council's responsibility. Certainly, you could provide your opinion, but at the end of the day, that 30% designation is the responsibility of the city council.
So are we supposed to provide any oversight? I don't want to get in the way of the city council. I don't want to get in the way of Ms. Suggs. Are we supposed to tell council that we have some red flags? Do we seek advice from them, or do we just
again, I think you can certainly share that information, and then it's going to be up to council if they want to dig further. They again can talk to their neighbors, as I mentioned, what was occurring in Folly. They can look at other methods, or they can continue as is. It's the purview of the folks that the city council.
I think we just need to continue to move forward. If we want to have further discussions about CVB, we can do that at the next agenda item. can we go into the freedom? of
Sure,
information
yeah.
Act?
And so, and I apologize, I brought many copies with me last time, but if anybody wants this, I certainly can go run to my car and grab a copy, but the South Carolina Press Association puts out a great document on freedom of information. Just wanted to provide quick overviews. As y'all already know, and the fact that we're streaming on the internet, y'all, Isle of Palms should be commended for its desire to commit to transparency. This is required to be an open meeting. It has to have an agenda, 24-hour public notice. Minutes have to be taken. And so those things are very important. I know technology pitfalls and talking with Ron. I understand, I believe y'all been given a city email address. Certainly, and just as an example, if 3 or 4 of you, more than a quorum, were to begin discussing one of these applications through an email, for example, under the Freedom of Information Act, that would be potentially considered a meeting. So be mindful that, you know, with emails and texts, it's to send out agendas, but it's not to have a discussion of the request, the agenda item. That is set for the open public meeting. So keep that. Go ahead, Ron. Keep that in mind. You are members of a public body, and so you are covered under the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act statute. The FOIA statute includes committees, advisory committees. So be mindful of that. You have to have a quorum, and so at least 4 of you have got to be here. Again, I've already said you got to give 24-hour notice, minutes taken, posted on the agenda, posted on town hall. Again, the city does a great job. Communications are public. I'll admit, I go into some towns and the committees won't understand that, well, and they'll send the public home. You can't do that. This is an open meeting. Maybe the Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee could sometime receive legal advice from the city attorney. I would think that would be very rare. I would think it'd almost be very rare for this body to go into executive session, but that is a closed meeting, properly noticed to discuss those particular matters. But you know, all the documents that you've got, other than those that would be covered as with the individual or corporate notification of Social Security numbers, all of this is public record. The applications. So just wanted to mention that to you. Other questions of me?
Let me just ask on
Sure.
the Freedom of Information Act. If we're given, if City Council gives us a project, something to look into as a committee, and in doing that, are the activities of the committee required? How can I say it? Are the activities? Let's say we're going to research what other cities are doing with their accommodations tax funds.
Sure.
So as a committee, 2, 3, 4, all of the committee got involved in talking to other municipalities about what they've done, what they've, you know, what they would do different or whatever.
Right.
Does that come under the purview of FOIA?
Likely. That is probably covered under the public records component of the law, and there's another document for municipal public records, and those might be considered a public document. Notes that you were to make during this meeting, emails, those would all be public records, and the holding of those records is outlined in that Public Records Act, how long the city's got to retain those documents.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Charles? Well, thank you
I
very much.
had one more, you know, I'll go into something else, but Folly Beach pays into an account with our selected DMO, $20,000. We pay about $600,000. I think Sullivan's pays maybe $6,000. But it looks, how's Folly Beach is, they use the rest of their money. They pay 20,000 to our designated marketing organization. They do the rest their own.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with their specifics. I just know from having talked with the administrative staff that they do have multiple designations.
We could follow that paradigm.
You could, as the law outlines.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Okay, the next item to discuss is an item I asked to be put on the agenda to discuss a follow-up discussion on the Charleston Area Visitor Bureau presentation that they made at our last meeting back in March. I want to stress that I understand, and I think everyone on this committee understands, that we are an advisory committee. We don't have any responsibility to execute anything. All we do is advise city council on what our thoughts are, and they can either take that advice or not. Isle of Palms is forecasted, Debbie gave us the financials. It's forecasted for fiscal year 2021 to pay Charleston Area Visitors Bureau about $640,000. By point of information, if you look back over the 5-year period, we will have paid them $2.9 million over the course of the past 5 years. And just by way of comparison, as Doug mentioned, Sullivan's pays something in the neighborhood of $6,000 a year, and Folly 20 or 25, and that information was given to us by the presentation at the last meeting from CVB. So it's kind of staggering, the comparison, and it got our attention, at least the committee's attention. During the meeting last March, we requested detailed financial information and on how they spend our money. What do they do with their money, and what their plans are for projects going forward. The gentleman who was here wasn't armed with that information, and it wasn't his area of responsibility. So he suggested we speak to some leadership at CVB, which there was a phone discussion on those specific questions about detailed financial information. And we were told that nothing will be given. So they're a private organization, and they are not divulging what they do with their money. Now I'd like to quote the South Carolina Code of Law, which Charlie referenced, but I'm going to read it so everyone understands what the law says. Before the beginning of each fiscal year, an organization receiving funds from the Accommodations Tax from a municipality or county shall submit for approval a budget of planned expenditures. At the end of each fiscal year, an organization receiving funds shall render an accounting of the expenditures to the municipality or county which distributed them. So the way I read that, you need to give them a plan. Or whoever the direct marketing organization is, needs to give the city or municipality or county the plan for the new year, and at the end of that year, full accounting. Doesn't say full accounting, it says render an accounting of the expenditure. By way of information that we received from Charleston Area Visitors Bureau, it's very summary information. They tell us they received a total of $7.4 million of ATAX revenue, which was part of a total revenue that they received of $19 million. And one line item, total expenses, $19 million. So we have no information about what they did with the money. And we were told it's not for us to know. Now, South Carolina law also provides, again, I'm kind of repeating what Charlie said, but that the 30% of the accommodations tax revenue that the city or municipality receives is allocated to a special fund for advertising and promotion of tourism to develop and increase tourist attendance. In order to do this, a municipality shall select one or more organizations such as Chamber of Commerce, Visitor and Convention Bureau, Regional Tourism Commission, or create an organization within the municipality. So, so that's what the option is with how you want to manage your 30% funds. As far as I know, from the very beginning of the creation of this fund, Charleston Area Visitors Bureau has been Isle of Palm's designated DMO or direct marketing organization. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Folly Beach, as an example, they formed their own cross-functional organization for this purpose. They have a committee that has hospitality represented, has lodging represented, has all the different areas of tourism covered. In the stated purpose that Folly states it's called the Folly Beach Tourism and Visitor Promotion Committee. That's what they call it. Stated purpose is to make recommendations to City Council on and establish guidelines for the advertisement and promotion of tourism for the city using the 30% accommodations tax received from the state. Again, I repeat, we're an advisory committee. That's our sole responsibility when in. I have a problem with when 96% of the accommodations tax that we are responsible for, which represents the 30%, 96% of the 30% goes to the DMO, CVB. I have a hard time approving that budget when I have no idea what I'm approving. All I'm approving is we're giving all the money to them without any understanding of what the plan is going forward and what they spent the previous year's monies on. So that's something that either I have to get over or understand that it's a good idea to do that. I don't want, I'm going to open this up for discussion, but I don't want to get into a detail of what we may think we know or do know about what CVB has done or is doing or anything of that sort. I want to concentrate the discussion on what we say to City Council concerning what they would like to have our role be. I would volunteer this committee to research what other cities have done, what they did right, what they did wrong, what they would do differently. I would volunteer this committee to do that work for the City Council. But again, I don't want to get into CVB this, CVB that. I want to get into more the understanding that our sister barrier islands are paying a fraction of what we pay to that organization, and understand they get the exact same marketing treatment as we do. We do not get any focused Isle of Palms advertising or promotion. It's all area. It's all Charleston area. So they're getting the benefit of the same benefit we are getting at a fraction of the cost. And the question comes to my mind anyway: are we spending good? Are we being a good? What's the word for it? are we a good guardian of the taxpayer money by approving that budget to give CVB that kind of money when other communities are doing it differently and possibly more effectively? I don't know. You can't argue with CVB's success. They've been extraordinarily successful. But I don't know that the success of Isle of Palms is entirely due to CVB's activities. So all that, going through that whole speech, I guess, I'd like to open it up for discussion, understanding that I don't want to get into details about what we think we know or do know about CVB specifically, just what your thoughts are about asking City Council for some guidance, and I'll just leave it at that. All right, well, since there's no discussion, I guess all I would ask is that my thoughts are reflected in the minutes, and those minutes are then forwarded to City Council for their review and feedback possibly.
I do know a lot of people on council are very frustrated the same way we are of having to spend all this money.
We have to spend the money.
Right.
It's just a matter of how we spend it. Is the question.
So Ray, they may be, our DMO may be doing an adequate job in promoting Isle of Palms. They may have some explanations that haven't been forthcoming, but we may do better by focusing on whether the Isle of Palms could have their own DMO rather than giving money to Charleston.
No, we don't want to do that.
Is that
Yeah,
pretty
that's
much where
part
we
of the
are?
problem. That's part of the problem is they don't want to do that. It's,
Council or I know the DMO gets our money. They're glad to have it.
I think it's just a lot to put on the city.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, we'll close that discussion. Last item is scheduling of the next meeting. It won't be on a Friday, and it won't be at 8:30.
Thank you, Ray. That's what we do. Have meetings until 8:11.
I was going to propose, the funny thing is that you schedule a meeting without knowing if you have anything to discuss. So, but I'm going to.
When do we have to have the next one for budget?
The budget didn't change from the last time y'all saw it. So we can present that next time. So there's no urgency on the budget presentation as far as
I was going to
scheduling a
propose,
meeting.
sorry. I was going to propose July 14 at 11 o'clock. That's a Wednesday. I went back in the archives, and traditionally this meeting was a Wednesday, and traditionally it was 11 o'clock. So I am in favor of going back to tradition, particularly not having to get up early in the morning.
The only thing that I would recommend that you keep in mind while doing this, oh, that was weird. I'm going to get away from that speaker. The only thing I'd recommend you keep in mind when scheduling the next meeting is that we need to have this meeting prior to Ways and Means Committee, which happens on the third Tuesday of each month. Okay.
July 20th would be the next of July.
Good. Okay, cool. And you guys can meet as often as you want, whether or not we have applications that we have received, but generally what the committee has done is meet when applications have been received. So
Well, I propose July 14th, 11 a.m.
That works.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Okay, next meeting, July 14th, 11 a.m.
You can remind me of that.
I will. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I so move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Against?